Namaste friends, I am Ritesh and today our topic is Pendant Pose, also known as Lolasana. Friends, it's a hardcore arm balancing posture and a good strengthener to the hip flexors. We have the psoas and iliac as hip flexors, often overlooked, especially for its core strengthening abilities. It's good for neuromuscular coordination. At the same time, it also helps to prepare you for more advanced arm balancing posture. Friends, Pendant Pose or Lolasana is a great prep, that is a preparatory pose to get into Tolasana, that is the lifted lotus pose. Friends, or it's also known as a scale pose. But Lolasana is just to prepare yourself. So friend, Lolasana, that is a pendant pose, comes into intermediate level arm balancing pose. And the reason behind it is known as a pendant pose because when you do the pose, you are moving like a pendant front and back. Okay, so that's the reason it is known as a Lolasana or a pendant pose. Friends, before you get into the practice, you should be really careful, especially with wrist or carpal tunnel syndrome issue. Any shoulder, any ankle or knee injury should be avoided. If you have hypertension or pregnancy, just be careful, okay, especially with the wrist. Now, before we get into the pose, I will ask you to prepare yourself with anything with the core, anything with the hip flexors. So something like a dolphin plank, a chaturanga dandasana, right? A downward facing dog, that is Adho Mukha Svanasana, a balancing table, and some core preparations too. In fact, friends, core should be used in every asana except Shavasana. Okay, so now let's get into the practice. So as I told you, before we get into the practice, I always start something, to prepare at a beginner level. So I take blocks. Friends, these blocks are very, very useful. Okay, in fact, I always sit on a block. So it just makes my spine more straight. And if you have any back issues, this just makes it at ease. Now let's do it. So you sit in Vajrasana. Okay, simple. Vajrasana, keep the blocks nearby. Right? Now, the reason behind I have been telling you to use the blocks because blocks give you a grip, if you see, right? So when I hold the block, I get a good grip. Compared to this, I round my shoulders. While this, my shoulders get more open. So that's the reason, invest in a block. Okay? So I told myself, if you see the difference, over here, I lift up. Okay? A little bit forward, maintain this position, and that's my pose. So tall, lengthen, compared to when I do it on the floor without the block, what's the position? Check. I have to lean more forward, my shoulders gets a little bit more rounded. But with the block, that becomes a little bit more easier. So don't hesitate to use the blocks. So I touch, hold it. Now you can also change this direction, right? But just be careful it doesn't tip over. Hold it, tall yourself. That's your pendant pose or your Lolasana. Friends, just be careful when you do this pose. And if you see when you're doing this pose, I can feel my rectus abdominis, so all the three muscles, the rectus abdominis, the internal and external obliques really working great. And at the same time my hip flexors. So it's a great strengthener to your abdominals because it's working on all the muscles. The rectus abdominis, known as the six pack, or the obliques. At the same time, it's working on the hip flexors because when you're doing this, these hip flexors are pulling the legs up, and that's the reason. So the iliac and psoas are great hip flexors, the primary hip flexors. So that is what you can focus on. It is especially great to lengthen the lower back also. So people with mild lower back can actually try this pose because it's giving you a traction. Friends, that was pendant pose, that is your Lolasana. But friends, this is a prep pose that goes for your scale pose, that is Lolasana. So Lolasana is with an L and Lolasana is with a T. So thank you for watching. In case you like my video, don't forget to hit the like button and do subscribe. And if you have any comments or suggestions, please mention in the comment section below. Also, let me do share of when you do with the block and without the block. Do you find the same difference? Namaste.